So I think after last episode, something does need addressing. There was a bit of contention over a particular line in the Canadian Grand Prix comedy review, and look, I hear you. Lesson learnt. Don't make jokes about plane crashes, they don't land well at all. No, fuck.
That's rude.
Hey there guys, I'm Will, and welcome to the Comedy Review, the show that must be the Comedy Review. Yeah, that's what I said, you fucking idiot. It's also the show where we talk about things that happen in motorsport. Things like this. Andrea Stella makes Lando Norris wet, Yuki Tsunoda preaches about confidence, and Valtteri Bottas struggles with the art of subtlety.
That's a nice seat.
Oh wow, that's actually a nice seat.
It's a great seat.
I wouldn't mind.
And there's two seats.
And they're both free.
Oh yeah.
You know, for Porridge Man's sake, I really do hope he gets this gig now. The Cadillac speculation was just the tip of the F1 news iceberg this week, and we start here. Now, it may have been 2 weeks since Lando Norris revealed his extra chromosome, but that hasn't stopped the internet from talking about it. More or less every YouTuber under the sun has covered the incident at this point, though I can't lie, I was most intrigued by F1's own Jolyon Palmer the most.
Really what he should have done, obviously, in hindsight, is just blast it.
Austria marks a pivotal weekend for the Briton to turn around his fortunes. Thankfully, he can take inspiration from the all-new F1 movie, which released this week and has its own separate comedy review, which apparently no one wanted to watch, so bear with me as I quickly go and kill myself. The film stars 61-year-old Brad Pitt playing an elderly Formula 1 driver pulled out of retirement, and if you think that sounds unrealistic, there's this one part where Lewis Hamilton is leading a Grand Prix, and it's Abu Dhabi of all places. You can check out this video for my full review. In the meantime, Aston Martin have launched their own driver academy, signing their first star of the future, Mary Boy What's a Big One, most famous for recently taking part in F1's Madrid showrun and doing this. A few smaller stories to wrap us up. There have been some new signings at McLaren in the form of Sonic the Hedgehog and Doctor Who. Meanwhile, Carlos Sainz Sr. has taken a closer look at the idea of running for FIA president and said something along the lines of this.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Finally, it's the start of silly season, and George Russell dropped a grenade amongst the pigeons when he revealed on Thursday that the reason he's not been re-signed to the Silver Arrows for 2026 is because Toto Wolff is still courting Max Verstappen. It's becoming increasingly clear that the Flying Dutchman is growing less and less pleased with the state of the Red Bull team, and recent paddock murmurings that their current run of poor performance, along with their new engine for the 2026 regulations, is, how do we say this politely, could allow him to trigger a break clause in his contract, and what a cherry on top it would be to also curb stomp Woody from Toy Story in the process. Is this really going to happen? Honestly, probably not, but with everyone else and they're dead now and locked down already for next year, look forward to all of your favourite F1 YouTubers bombing your subscription feed like it's the new Gaza Strip. Yep, that's a good line after narrowly avoiding being cancelled. Well done, Will. Friday's opening FP1 session was all about someone who isn't even on the F1 grid, as McLaren handed over bottling duties to F2 prospect Alex Dunn for the initial hour of practice. I'd written loads of done for the day jokes for this bit, though rather annoyingly the Irishman turned out to be rather good, lapping within 1/10 of championship leader teammate Piastri. All the while, Norris managed to bottle sitting down on a seat. It would be Canada race winner George Russell on form once again though, topping FP1 in a metaphorical f*** you to Toto, with the Austrian's next potential sex slave P2 in his Red Bull. It wasn't the smoothest of sessions for the reigning world champion, who already has the added headache of having his voodoo doll take the weekend off, instead having to take his anger out on the Williams cars, this being the racing line teammate Captain Confidence decided to emulate on his initial runs. Fernando Alonso caused the most drama of the opening hour, giving the crowd a little twirl at the final corner in what he described as the worst outlap ever. I don't know, Romain Grosjean's British Grand Prix effort might just one-up that one. With the remainder of the session being devoted to reminding drivers what way the Spielberg circuit went, we can move on to FP2, and it was a deep breath for McLaren, as Nozza was back in the car, and thankfully it wasn't Q3, so he went fastest of anyone. Charles Leclerc had been another to give up his seat for FP1, and had less fun reacclimatising to his surroundings. Slightly further back, here's Kimi Antonelli discovering a wild Hamilton on his quali run. Another driver facing issues was death row inmate Liam Lawson, whose V-Carb team attempted to solve their upcoming driver decision struggles by setting the Kiwis' car to turn hard right into the wall. So the McLarens led the way on Friday then, with the best of the rest happening to be the Canadian stick Lance Stroll. Special hoping this could be a turning point in this season. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. While Lando Norris was able to top that second session, that didn't mean he completely had learnt his lesson from Canada, as the 4 car was spotted once again attempting to go for gaps that didn't exist at points in the session. This move didn't particularly please the Verstappen camp, triggering Verstappen fan 1 to say this: "You think after Canada, Lando would have learned not to attempt these moves? Seriously, what is he doing? Is it just a mistake, or is he following George's lead and attempting to get Max banned?" Now, while the first part of this take I actually agree with, Verstappen fan 1 reveals that the 1 in his username reflects his number of functional brain cells, with the second half. Only this instead appeared to act as a magnet for fellow bellends. Anyway, after a rigorous search, I was able to find some intellectuals, so here are my favourites. You are dense. Are you paid, or are you this stupid for free? God, you're slower than Red Bull's second seat. I swear all of these Lando fans have no brain. This was actually in reference to something else, but I thought I'd include it here anyway. Big ups to this guy for submitting this one, and if you'd like to nominate the next X-Bellend of the week, use the hashtag on screen, tag me on the platform, or join our Discord server. Now on to FP3. Oh look, it's the Vaginus again. Norris would once again go top of FP3, dominating the final practice sessions. We all put our bets on Oscar Piastri for pole. Tell you what, if Lando does snag P1 now, this is going to sound really awkward, isn't it? There were some new upgrades on the McLaren this week, new suspension for Lando Norris, and new race overalls for Piastri after the Australian shit all over his old ones following this scare at the final corner. Max Verstappen was the fastest non-McLaren in the field, though again didn't have a trouble-free session, whether it was painting the runoff with gravel or attempting spin moves over the finish line. Yuki Tsunoda once again took this moment to be the one that he emulated late on, capped in confidence, at least able to finish within the top 10. Turn 3 was proving tricky for a few, many choosing to explore the outer extremities of the circuit, while Belgrano boy wasn't sure if he hit the apex, so had to turn around and double check. A promising session for others in the field, Gabriel Bortoletto frequently gracing the top half of the timing tables, while Aston Martin continued to look the most competitive they've been all season. So I guess it's about time to see how this translates in qualifying, and never mind, Specials f***ed it at the first hurdle. He wouldn't be the only big name dropping out of Q1, as Yuki Tsunoda decided to spend the closing stages on a slow lap, which isn't ideal when you're already in the drop zone. Also notice I called these big names, not surprises, because that old title doesn't really fit anymore. Joining the pair would be the Williams of Sainz, who found out qualifying isn't very fun when your floor resembles the wall of an Amsterdam toilet cubicle, Ocon in the house, and Hulkenberg and his Sauber, who were suffering from limitations of their own, only this time it was in the form of their talent. A red flag would appear in Q2, though since Lando Norris was still moving on the timing tracker, many were confuddled over what had brought it out. Now you might remember this phenomenon from earlier in the season, when patches of grass began to mysteriously catch fire, thanks to the sparks produced off the titanium skid blocks on the bottom of the cars. But the FIA fixed this by replacing them with steel ones. Oh, never mind, apparently they've been changed back, and well, what do you know? Also, this long explanation sadly doesn't forgo the need to have one of these. George Russell very nearly found himself joining that group, so was trying to comfortably secure his spot in the top 10 shootout during Q2, though it can't have felt that great coming across the line only to find yourself behind a Sauber. Gabriel Bortoletto was flying, however, as was the V-carb of Liam Lawson, who'd ended Q1 in third, booking himself a spot in the final session as well. Teammate Hadjar wasn't so lucky, missing out by 2/10, though on the bright side that gives him more time to like offensive memes on Instagram, and joining him in the drop zone would be Alonso, Belgrano, Behrman and Fraudbon. On to Q3 then, and this was the big one. This was the shortest circuit on the calendar, meaning the times would be close, and your odds of guessing which corner Lando decides to stack it increased significantly. But then, something unheard of happened. Lando completed the lap. Well, without any mistakes, or damage, or crying over the radio. What was going on here? Piastri, meanwhile, was the one who mucked up his turn 1, leading several to believe that McLaren had just swapped their helmets for this weekend to help make this championship vaguely interesting again. That also allowed the Ferrari of Leclerc to sneak onto the front row, but we weren't done yet, as there was still one last set of flying laps to go, and there you go. You see, now cuts to the McLaren, wedged halfway into the barrier. Oh, apparently it was an Alpine. Yeah, that probably still checks out, I guess. That brief yellow flag caused chaos for the field, however. Verstappen having to back off a lap that would have put him on the front row, if you believe Horny Horner anyway, and Piastri's effort thwarted as well. All the while, Norris was going even quicker, and I'm glad we've already had our X-Bellend of the week, because I'm sure that site is swarming with degenerates right now. Elsewhere, shout-outs to Lawson and Bortoletto for 6th and 8th respectively, and Hamilton, who was once again out-qualified by Leclerc, but still called this a fantastic qualifying. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it might just be over. That wasn't the only example of head loss on display. Take a listen to Lando Norris's evaluation of his season thus far.
I felt like I've always been performing well and putting good laps in, and
that's an interesting smell. What is that? I'm getting whiffs of bullshit. Sunday would begin with these bizarre scenes as a truck driver managed to wipe out one of the overhead gantries above the circuit. As at time of recording, there's no official mention on who the driver was, but Fred Vasseur has just had to leave Austria for personal reasons, so I wonder if that's related at all. Anyway, the drama would continue on the formation lap, as Carlos Sainz decided he was going to emulate the F1 movie, and if you don't get that reference, just watch this video. Nope, you're still not interested? Alright, I'll go f*** myself then. Sainz was eventually able to get going, only after the start was aborted, giving us 10 minutes to enjoy the little light show the Williams put on as it promptly burst into flames in the pit lane. We tried this again then with one lap off the total counter. That was one lap less then for Lando to throw it all the way, and the Briton started strong, holding off Leclerc at turn 1, who was promptly swallowed up by Piastri on the exit. Now the other big talking point in this race was that it was the last one before Max Verstappen could breathe easy again, still on 11 penalty points and one away from a race ban. The Dutchman thus had to be careful here. Thankfully, Kimi Antonelli would come to the rescue by identifying as a cruise missile and wiping out the Red Bull at turn 3. As a supposed future teammates got to know each other in a rather awkward stroll back to the pits, the safety car was coming in and the McLarens flexed their muscles as they tore away from the pack behind. That gave us a thrilling duel as the pair fought it out in the opening stages, Piastri getting closer and closer before we got too close in a move that scared Lando into the pits. Normally this would secure him the easy undercut around here until the slow tyre change on the front right left the 4-car vulnerable for the next lap. Had Piastri pitted here, there was a very real chance to take the lead. Only McLaren could already hear the rumble of the apoplectic 7-year-olds on Twitter and decided it was time to extend Oscar's stint to benefit him at the end of the race. As it turned out, that wouldn't have mattered anyway, as when Oscar did finally come into the box, the team revealed that ahead of the weekend, the front right tyre changer had been replaced by a diversity hire. He cocked up again, and as he was marched to the back of the garage to be shot in the head, this race finally settled down for a bit. Further down the field, Alex Albon had been trying to cling on to a points-paying position. That was until his Williams found out about Carlos's retirement and fancied the afternoon off as well. Fortunes weren't faring much better for the lone Red Bull of Yuki Tsunoda, who now had to carry the team, doing so by getting into a scrap with Belgrano boy over 15th place. With his afternoon in tatters, he then decided to do us all a favour by punting off the Argentinian at turn 4. With a 10-second penalty and a damaged front wing for the Japanese driver, we'd spend the next 20 laps watching Piastri slowly eke into Norris's lead, excited about the prospect of a great tyre delta at the end of the race. McLaren then pit both cars one lap behind the other, scrapping said delta and likely ruining the rest of this one. That also placed Piastri behind the Tsunoda Colapinto battle, where the Alpine driver showed all the spatial awareness of Stevie Wonder as he forced the McLaren onto the grass as it attempted to lap the Argentinian. Hats off to Piastri for at least seeing the funny sides, coming over the team radio to say, and I'm not making this up, Alpine still managed to find a way to f*** me over all these years later. Fair to say Twitter was slightly less forgiving. The f***ing knob cost us a battle for the lead. Personally, I blame Thatcher for not killing his parents. Bloody hell, that's a bit far. This random Twitter man had a point though. Norris's advantage was shrinking, but the laps were ticking down as well. Thankfully, some more lap cars lay ahead, Bortoletto getting into a ding-dong with his manager Fernando Alonso, which ended much more harmoniously than the Schumacher-Vettel equivalent from a few years ago. That battle also held up the charging Piastri, scrapping any final hopes of a late move for the win, and allowing Norris to take his third victory on the season. Now just bear with me as I turn off the comments section for this video. Ferrari Charles Leclerc would complete the podium, and on the subject of our Sunday shoutouts, congrats to Gabriel Bortoletto for achieving the first Brazilian points in 8 years, Lewis Hamilton for only being slightly less than usual, and Liam Lawson, who was another surprise in the top 10 and the highest placing Red Bull driver of the day. You know what, Yuki? It was nice knowing you, pal. We really could have done with one more lap in this one, in which case we can blame all of this on Carlos Sainz. The first 20 laps were the makings of a 10 out of 10 race, but the second half let it down somewhat, so I'm going to settle with a solid 7. Let me know your ratings down in the comments below. You know, I was working on this Bortoletto video for the patrons this week. That may just be delayed as I rewrite the last part. Big thank you to them for all of the support, and they got an early preview to this one, so if that sounds interesting to you and you want to help support the channel, go and check out the links in the description. For everybody else, liking and subscribing helps me out a ton as we get closer and closer to my 2025 target of 200,000 subscribers, so make sure you do all that, and then f*** off.